Saw dudes, with the recent release of my Saryn Prime video, I wanted to showcase the build in a level cap setting. Saryn is a monster, which is a surprise to absolutely nobody. That being said, I was always hesitant to use her due to personal playstyle conflicts. While she still isn't my favorite after testing, her overall strength and position in the meta is undeniable. Let's get started. The Saryn Prime build is a standard weapons platform setup and utilizes shield gating for survivability. Keep in mind, I subsume Roar over Miasma since it scales much better. Brief Respite restores our shields with any ability cast, making Saryn hard to kill, especially when using Molt, since it is a status cleanse. Prime Continuity extends the duration of our buffs, and Flow and Equilibrium help with energy economy issues. Fast Deflection provides us a faster shield regen rate if we don't have the energy to shield gate. Transient Fortitude and Umbral Intensify increase the potency of our buffs. Catalyzing Shields gives us a lower shield amount and a 1.33 second shield gate. Lastly, Venom Dose grants our weapons corrosive damage, which works wonders with Toxic Lash and Roar. The arcanes are somewhat flexible, but I chose to use Arcane Ice Storm and Molt Augmented. Ice Storm is used because my primary weapon is Tenet Glaxion, which can reliably proc cold status and freeze enemies. The bonus ability duration and strength is nice to have on Saryn, who relies on weapon buffs to output damage. Molt Augmented is a straightforward ability strength steroid. The Archon Shards are pretty interesting. I have 1 Tauforge Emerald Shard to increase corrosive status stacks by 3, 3 Tauforge Emerald Shards to increase toxin status damage, and 1 Casting Amber Shard. Long story short, you don't need to fully strip armor with Saryn to get the maximum damage possible. Full stripping armor would only increase damage by 14%, which gets outclassed by the Toxin Emerald Shards. A 98% armor strip, provided by 1 Tauforge Corrosive Shard, is enough to get good damage. As already mentioned, my primary weapon was the Tenet Glaxion, which applies cold procs. I have a magnetic bonus on mine and modded it for crit and slash via Hunter munitions. We don't need a Bane mod because we are using Roar, so I chose to use Photon Overcharge for extra energy regen and Hammer Shot for more crit damage and status application. I wanted to mess around with 2 dangerous strobe lights, so I used my Kuva Nukor as my secondary, so just 2 lasers. This build focuses on applying as many heat procs to the enemy as possible, which melts them from the inside out like icy hot. Like the Glaxion, this weapon has a magnetic progenitor bonus. Again, you don't need a Bane mod thanks to Roar on Saryn. As usual, I used Praedos as my melee weapon. The evolutions I used were Drifting Grace, Shockwave Synergy, Evolved Ascension, and Universal Readiness. This weapon wasn't used much in the run and was primarily used as a movement speed steroid. The extra sprint speed and parkour speed made it much easier to traverse the tile set for me. Finally, we have the Panzer build. The most notable parts of the build are Synth Deconstruct, Viral Quills, Tenacious Bond, and Reinforced Bond. Synth Deconstruct creates health orbs, which get converted to energy via Equilibrium. Viral Quills primes enemies with Viral, boosting our toxin damage. Tenacious Bond increases our final critical multiplier, and Reinforced Bond increases our fire rate. This companion serves as the cherry on top for our outgoing damage. The focus school I used is Madurai since you need to one-shot Thrax units and will need Void Strike occasionally. I know you might be tempted to use Xeneric because it generates energy, and while I understand where you're coming from, it's not worth it, especially in Void Cascade. Try using energy pads if you can, because the biggest limiting factor in your run is amp damage. The amp I used was a standard 147 or Certus Brace, Raplac Prism, and Fad Scaffold. You can easily one-shot Thrax with a headshot in lower levels. I used Magus Cloud, Magus Lockdown, Eternal Eradicate, and Eternal Onslaught as my operator arcanes. Time to talk about the run. First of all, Saryn's outgoing damage is great, and she makes every weapon feel like a BFG. The Tenet Glaxion and Kuva Nukor are known to be great weapons, but with 3 buffs, they felt ridiculous. Venom Dose, Toxic Lash, and Roar work well on beam weapons thanks to the way they apply status quickly, allowing them to melt through HP bars. I think the best part about my setup in this run was choosing to use Glaxion. The cold status effects do affect Eximus units even while they still have Overguard. Granted, they won't be frozen, but they will still suffer from the slowing effect, something that is invaluable in endgame content. After the Overguard is worn off, they can be frozen, which is amazing. Saryn doesn't really have great crowd control though, and she relies on killing enemies faster than they can kill her to survive. This is why Tenet Glaxion was so useful, and why I think Epitaph Prime would have worked well here too. That brings me to my next point. Saryn lacks crowd control and a decent means of survival. While this build uses Molt to shed status and refresh shield gates, it's very spammy and can easily run out of gas in a bad position. Let's compare this to Volt, who doesn't need catalyzing shields or brief respite, only the capacitance augment. This makes his 4 a great way to refresh shield gate for everyone and stun locks enemies, making survivability a lot better. Of course he has his shield, but that's besides the point. Besides that, I don't hate Saryn. Her Molt ability is great, and the speed buff from it allows me to rotate from various points much faster than I would have otherwise been able to. She's just not my cup of tea. I can, however, wholeheartedly recommend her to anyone who wants to engage in level cap content. If you have a dedicated team, her safety issue will become an afterthought. I hope this video helped, and let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you for watching and happy farming. Stay safe.
Exilizer spent. Exalizer spent. Exalizer suppressed. Purge before contamination orders. Exalizer has been detected. Exalizer to possession. Keep any roaming Thrax away from that Exalizer until it discharges. Down an Exalizer. Working on backups. exolyzer spent. Spent exolyzer has been retired. Or is manifesting something other than a nightmare. Just lost an exolyzer to possession. Get it back. Down an exolyzer. Working on back. Keep any roaming thrax away from that exolyzer until it discharges.